Hello, and welcome to a special edition of Up Close on METV. I'm Charles Clapsaddle, station manager for Manatee Educational Television, and it's our great pleasure to have with us today a young filmmaker, Bonnie Silvestri, to talk about an important new project that she is developing. Bonnie, thank you so much for joining us, and it's always a great pleasure to see you. You know, we've worked with you for many, many years on very special projects that you've been involved with. But this one is a unique one, and we'd really like to hear about it. But before we begin, tell us a little bit about yourself, Bonnie, and your background.
Well, I'm trained and educated as an attorney, and I worked for 10 years in Manhattan in various offices, particularly focusing on government ethics. So I was special counsel to the Conflicts of Interest Board of the City of New York, and then I became the executive director, the founding director of the Judicial Campaign Ethics Center for the New York State court system.
But you then, Florida, being very fortunate, was very fortunate to have you move here, and you started a new career in the Florida area. Tell us about that.
I began working at University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee, and that's how we met early on.
Yeah.
And I was able to teach constitutional law, and also that's a 2-semester course, and women in the law, which has become a real passion of mine.
And that's kind of an adjunct of what we want to talk a little bit about today, because you are now involved in a very exciting project. And I think that's one that this community and this region and this country need to know more about. And that project is called A Funnel of Dreams. And tell us about the kind of evolution, the genesis of this project.
Yes, thank you. Basically, I started to think about the ways in which I was being impacted by becoming pregnant, and I was teaching women in the law at the time, and all the cases that we covered, I sort of thought about in a very abstract way. I have believed for my whole life that I was equal to men and that I would be treated equally in the workplace, and I felt as though there weren't as many issues as there had been for my mother's generation.
That's a very good point.
However, as I became pregnant and started to realize that there's ways in which your work life does become impacted, particularly when you're trying to find that level of balance. So I really wanted to focus in more deeply on this. I was able to interview Anne Marie Slaughter, who came to town, and she wrote Why Women Can't Have It All, and why women still can't have it all. And she really focuses on this idea that in other countries, women do have paid maternity leave. However, we're the only industrialized nation that does not provide paid maternity leave. We do have the Family Medical Leave Act, which you may be familiar with, that was
And tell us a little bit about that, and because that's something that, you know, not a lot of people are familiar with, the Family Medical Leave Act. And what does it encompass?
Well, it's not only for maternity. It does fit if you have a sick relative or someone you need to care for, or if you're sick yourself. However, it's been mostly used by mothers. Yes. And it gives 12 weeks of unpaid leave, but your job will be held secure for you during that time period. But there are a number of exceptions, particularly that you have to be working for a place for a year, you have to work for a place that has 50 or more employees, and things of that nature. So there's many people who work in the service industry and other kinds of places that it doesn't affect
that are not
you.
entitled to that family. And there's so many caveats within that, you know, sometimes if you're a woman and you're pregnant, you know, you're put in a very, very difficult position. And, you know, it's very interesting, if I may say so. You've always been deeply involved in outreach and community-related issues. So this is a very important issue that affects 50% of the population.
Yes.
And one of the great things about this is that, and I hope you tell us a little bit more about it, is that the variance of applications for maternity leave throughout the world. And you recently, or you know, at some point, went to the United Kingdom for a visit or an extended stay, and you found that their policy is very much different.
Yes. So one of the things I thought about was that we kind of have this tendency to say, well, we don't do it so well in the United States. It's done so much better in another country.
Right.
And I wanted to see what would happen if I went to the United Kingdom and lived there. And so our whole family picked up and left and and went to the United Kingdom, and we lived there for 6 months. And while I was there, we worked on this documentary, which is called Funnel of Dreams. And the idea is that we wanted to still we didn't want the birth of our child to impact us in a way that we couldn't still do all of the things that we wanted to do in our lives.
Exactly.
And we were very fortunate. Many people are not. They have to get back to work in 2 weeks.
Exactly.
Often. So there's that aspect of it as well, that we don't want there to be a funnel of dreams. We want everyone to have opportunities to continue to do what they dream of doing, even after becoming a parent.
And one of the key things, too, in conversations that we've had is that, to be able for a woman to not only be there for her child, but to have those opportunities still available to her when she comes back from a maternity leave. And those are a key issue as well.
Absolutely. And one of the things I wanted to see by living in the United Kingdom was, do they really do it better? So by talking to the moms there, they did really feel so great about the opportunity to spend more time with their child. And actually, there was a moment that was sort of an Alan Funt moment where I overheard these mothers saying, "Oh, I can't believe it, I have to go back, and I've only been out 9 months, and it's almost time." And I said, "I hope you don't mind if I tell you that in the United States, we actually don't have any paid leave." And their mouths fell open.
Really?
They couldn't believe it, because they were thinking, boy, they would like to have had even longer to stay home and spend time and bond with their child. But they didn't realize how it was in other parts of the world, and particularly the United States.
Which is an important point. 9 months is, an extensive time. But one of the key things, and I'd like for you to take a few moments to talk about this, is that proven fact that those first few months with your child are vital to family bonding, the child's health and well-being. So it's really an important asset for a family unit to have an extended stay. Is that correct?
I would say that that's definitely true. And I really wanted to see what happens in a country where they have taken the effort to ensure that there is a safety net if a family member wants to stay home with their child. So you have to be in a certain tax bracket almost to have that opportunity here, whereas over in the United Kingdom, single mothers were able to stay home with their children. They didn't have to immediately get back to work to be able to support their child, things of that nature that we were learning a lot about.
And I would think, and you please, feel free to, is that so critical for that family unit to have that kind of bonding experience through the very, important formative years of a child's life?
Yes, I feel that, in particular, Anne-Marie Slaughter was talking about the book Lean In. And she was saying mothers are leaning in so much that they're falling over and families too, mothers and fathers, because there's so many things that you don't think about when you just sort of have this dream of having a child, that daycare ends at 5:45. Well, what if your job ends at 5:30? I had a friend who said she thought she was going to get in a car wreck trying to get to the daycare within 15 minutes, on the roads. And there's so much that goes into it. For example, if you had a job in the evening, there really isn't any provision at all.
Or going to school, or the variety of other things. So the components that make up to having that wonderful family unit that everybody talks about is so vital to bonding together. There's so many complications that can come with not having an extended time for that mother or that family member to be home with their child.
Yes, I think that we've sort of talked about that we are a family values country, and then when you sort of dig down and kind of unpack that, what are some of the issues that arise if we want to be a family values country?
And I think that's important. So as during your stay in the United Kingdom, and you had the opportunity to meet with people, and meet with mothers, and see the sense of what they were accomplishing over there, what did you take away from that? Is it an ideal system? Is their policy something that you would say would work really really well in the United States?
I think that is a fantastic question. One thing I have to say was it wasn't as perfect as I was expecting. There were still quite a number of issues that happen because whenever there are exceptions, there are ways that employers can get around things. And so I was learning about some of the issues that arose for the mothers who did take that extended period of time and some of the difficulties they had getting back to work. However, I did get the chance to interview someone who had basically what I would consider to be an ideal situation.
And what is that? What is the ideal situation?
She had an entire year off, and then when she returned to work, she was given the opportunity for an additional 3 months to consider whether she would prefer part-time or full-time. So they held open her position as a full-time position, and she was able to make that determination within that 3 months of returning to work that she would like to stay on as part-time. And they were able to accommodate that. Here, if you ask to go to part-time, often that can be the end of the working environment for you.
And you know, I would suggest to you that, you know, employers who have that kind of concept, you know, to be able to give back to their employees, I would think that would generate so much goodwill from your employees that they're reaching out and they're trying to do the best for you, that you're creating a good employee down the road.
Absolutely. This woman in particular absolutely loved what she did, and she really was very appreciative of the fact that they were sort of in a rotation, that other mothers were there too, and they would kind of take over for one another and help out. So being able to create that kind of environment, it will take some time because there's all kinds of issues that come up, but that I think would be a great situation to have. And although everything was not perfect there, I do think that that's a good direction for us to consider going in.
Well, and you know, that's a very interesting concept, and I'm sure your documentary will explore all of these many facets of this. But one of the key things that, you know, I'd like for you to take a few moments to talk about is the system that exists now is not perfect, and you know, and women are hard pressed, you know, to continue things. What's that kind of key thing that you want people to know about the importance of maternity leave, extended leave?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is we talk so much about equal pay for equal work. And I think that one of the reasons why we've struggled to achieve equal pay for equal work is because a lot of women are taking time off and then they have to take a pay cut, or they don't really get back to the place that they had been in their career. They're afraid to take time off.
Exactly.
So there's all kinds of issues that come up. So I think that if we really want to get to equal pay for equal work, we're really going to have to take into account what happens with parenting.
And I think that's a key issue. Now, moving into your new role as a documentary filmmaker, you know, you've developed all this material. You've reached out. You've done several outstanding interviews with people who are leaders in this field or have a great interest in this field. But creating this documentary, you want to be able to reach a wider audience talking about this very significant social issue. Why was it important for you to make a documentary?
Well, one of the reasons is that I've actually utilized documentaries a lot in my teaching. And I think that there are few ways to really get across a point as strong as using a documentary. I think that it is such an important form.
Right.
At this point in our lives. I think that so many people can become a documentary filmmaker when they have a particular issue that they're passionate about.
Absolutely.
And I think that it is such a fantastic teaching tool, and it's a really great way for people to start a dialogue.
And I think that's a key thing. You know, there's several great documentaries, you know, about farm workers, and things have gone on to really change social issues. And we hope the best for your documentary as well. Tell us a little bit about the involvement of some of the people. You're the co-producer of A Funnel of Dreams, and you have who's your other producer?
My husband. He did all of the camera work for the film and helped conceive of the idea.
Right.
And also, he helped organize the entire trip as well. So we went for the 6 months. We lived in a house there. We became part of the community. And so it was really key for us as a family to have this time with our daughter, Daphne.
And I think that's a wonderful thing. So this is like a family project so to speak, but you're the producer. So, but it's really wonderful to have that kind of, understanding that this is an important issue that you're trying to illuminate, for a wider audience to understand. And I think it does a great service for women out there to understand that, this is an inequity that, can be or should be corrected.
And I also think it's really important for fathers too. Prince William actually took his two weeks of statutory time and he sort of set a trend as well, hopefully, for the United Kingdom.
I think that's great.
I wish they had more than 2 months because, 2 weeks, I'm sorry. It's really important for the dad to be there as well. One thing is the mother is healing because they've actually gone through childbirth. So it's really important for the dads to be involved as well. So that was why we thought it was really great to kind of have this be a family.
And I think that's a really
movie.
Important, comment that you make there, because it is, bringing a child into the world is a very heavy duty responsibility. And as you bond together with that child, that mother and that father should have a great opportunity, to help one another. And by doing that, they're helping their child nurture and grow.
One thing was I felt as though I didn't see enough examples of on and off ramps about what to do if you want to take some time off, but then you are still very focused on your career, how to do that. So one thing I'm really hoping that this film could do, and what I hope to do with students and everyone that I meet, is to talk about what are the ways that we can ensure that if career is very important to you, which it is for most people, that there's a way to get back into it without too much difficulty. And we
or
want
without
that
too much penalty.
Yes.
And
I
having
don't
moved down a slot.
Exactly.
Or being, relegated to other positions. If you're a very successful young woman and, in whatever field that you're going into, and you have a child and you've taken your leave and you want to move back, it does not seem fair or equitable, to say, well, we'll bring you back, but you have to start here again. So it doesn't seem that that's a fair response.
And I don't think we're there yet. I really don't think we've figured out exactly how to work this out. So I think that this is important, that this film hopefully will start that dialogue, because I don't think we've gotten there. We have Marissa Mayer feeling that she has to get back after 2 weeks running Yahoo and bringing her baby into the workplace, and not very many mothers would be fortunate enough to be able to have their child there. But also, she's kind of setting this trend that you have to get back in this, quickly in 2 weeks and run the company.
And that places an undue burden upon any woman that would like to try to do that. There's the stress and anxiety of having to do that back in the workplace, but also feeling the stress and anxiety of having a young child at home too. But one of the key things that I'd like for you to talk a little bit about is during the process of developing this, you've had the opportunity to talk to so many wonderful people. You've kind of documented that, people in the United Kingdom as well as people here in the United States about this issue.
Yes. One of my absolute favorite interviews was with Lucy Powell, who was at that time the shadow minister for children and childcare. And we got to go and visit with her. She represents Manchester, but we went to London and interviewed her at her office. And she actually was wheeling her own child in. She was running late a few minutes, and she was able to go back to work and have her child, and there was actually childcare on site there. But she talked about all of the things that she was so happy that the United Kingdom had been able to accomplish, but all the ways that she thought that so much more could be done. So she was really a fantastic leader, and I think that they'll be setting the trends for how things should be handled. She talked a lot about that idea of giving people time when they get back to go to part-time, how to ramp back up, all the kinds of things that are really significant. She also talks about how she really thinks that we should banish this word juggle. She doesn't like to think that parents are juggling. She said mothers are some of the best workers that you'll ever have because they have their priorities in order, and they know they have to get their work done and get home.
And I think that's a really an important point, is that, there's childcare, there's feeding, there's washing, whatever you have to, to do, to make sure your child is fed and well cared for. But at the same time, you have all these other responsibilities too, paying bills and, shopping and all these other things. It's a vast responsibility for a young woman or any person, who has children.
Absolutely. And I think it's really important for people to just understand that and know how much goes into childcare, particularly because as we have more research, we know that it's really important for parents to spend a lot of time with their children. I think that was something that was always acknowledged, but now we have sort of research to back it up about how significant it is to have that time.
Well, and one of the other things that I'd like for you to ask, and this might be coming out in your further research, as you look around, the other countries around the world, we're talking about, the industrialized countries like maybe Germany or the United Kingdom of having policies, but there's a lot of poor third world countries that have no policy whatsoever for any kind of child care. Is that correct?
Actually, almost every other country does actually provide for child care.
Oh, see, there was I would not have thought that.
It is surprising, and some of the countries have even longer than the United Kingdom. So they do provide additional paid time off.
Well, I think that's a unique thing then. So it even puts the United States even further behind than most things. One of the things that I wanted to talk to you about too is how you're approaching your documentary. You have kind of a unique creative vision that you're trying to tell through this. Can you share with that a little bit about your your creative concepts?
Well, one of the reasons I was so excited when I started telling you about it was that it's sort of this idea of happily ever after. And we sort of end there. You get married and you want to have a child and it's happily ever after and that's the end. But no, there's a lot more that happens after that. So looking at it as a fairy tale, but yet almost a fractured fairy tale, because there's so many issues that can come up, and I think we have to be honest about that.
That's very true.
So I liked the idea that we would look at it from a very positive point of view. I really always like to take a positive approach, but to point out where there are issues. So it is one of the most amazing, if not the most amazing thing I've ever done in my life, was becoming a mother. So I want everyone to have that time to experience being a mother in a really full way, like I've been able to do. So that's something that I feel I'd like to speak out on behalf of people everywhere, that they have that chance.
And I think that's an important, you've been involved in many, civic, issues for many, many years. You have a strong, clear voice, speaking out about issues that face, whether it's students or women or whatever the issue may be. And I'd like to point out and let our community know that you were the recent recipient of the Graham Fry Civic Award through the Florida Campus Compact, which is for all of the work that you've done in your civic and community engagement. First of all, tell us a little bit about that award, and again, congratulations for that, but the significance of it and how that is going to be you're taking that into part of your documentary.
Well, I felt so honored to win that award because actually I got the chance to meet Bob Graham at the very beginning of what some people might remember as our Civility and Democracy series at University of South Florida, Sarasota, Manatee. So that he sort of kicked off our whole series and spoke so beautifully about the importance of civic engagement. So to be able to then be the recipient of this award was really special for me, because I really believe strongly in the fact that as we educate people about issues, particularly young people, have no idea that birth control wasn't even legal.
It's true.
For a very long time. So there's all kinds of things that once people become aware, and I've learned this so much from being able to teach, that if you have time and you take the issues and you really look at them carefully, there's a lot less rancor involved, because it's not these sort of sound bites here and there. So that's what I believe really strongly in. And I think documentary is a really fantastic way of having someone sit and sort of think about something for whatever it is, 45 minutes to an hour and 20 minutes, to think about particular issues, and it changes minds.
And and that's a very good point that you brought up, is that the scope of your documentary, The Funnel of Dreams, it's insightful. It's going to be looking not in a 2-minute soundbite or a 3-minute news story. It's something that's very thoughtful, incisive, and goes deep into issues that will affect 50% of our population and all of the women that are involved in wanting to have a child. That's why I think a documentary of this caliber is going to be so important.
Well, thank you so much. I'm really glad that you saw that and were interested in it as well.
Well, we're very excited to be working with you on this, but one of the key things that I think is important is, the takeaway for people who are part of your audience and part of the community. And what is that takeaway? What do you want people to leave with as they watch this documentary?
Well, that is a great question. What I really hope happens is that it just gets people thinking and talking about this. So even if we can't get to the 1-year maternity leave right off the bat, at least we can start making some incremental changes and make people aware. And I actually have noticed that this issue has become front and center in this particular campaign season. So I think it's very important. It might not happen immediately, but at least there's going to be hopefully a greater level of awareness of why this is important. And maybe employers will start to think about what you said about how you would have a happier and more fulfilled worker, because they don't feel rushed.
And also they feel part of an organization that cares about them and their well-being. Bonnie, you're kind of running down on time a little bit, and I want to touch on a couple of other points. First of all, it's our great pleasure to be involved with you and as you move forward with Funnel of Dreams, because I think, one, it's going to be an exciting documentary talking about issues that affect a lot of people. However, more than that, I think it addresses a social issue that perhaps hasn't been. Maybe it's been talked about, or maybe it's had a brief little story about. But this type of social issue affects everyone. It affects a country, affects a community.
Absolutely. And I think that if there's a way that we can kind of let people have this sort of treasured time with children, they'll be happier children growing up, and there's going to be so many amazing ripple effects. And women will be able to, and men will be able to go further in their careers once there's this greater realization of what transpires when you become a parent. So I think that it hopefully, we don't want there to be a funnel of dreams. We want people to be able to fulfill all of their dreams and be able to be a parent as well.
Well, Bonnie, I can't thank you enough for sharing this about Funnel of Dreams. It's a very exciting project, one that's going to be very well received, I'm sure. And your involvement, your civic engagement is to be applauded. Again, congratulations on your significant recognition with the award. Couldn't have happened to a better person.
Oh, thank you so much.
And you've done so much within this community, whether it's with USF or other organizations that you've worked with. You bring certainly a lot of insight, passion, drive, and determination into this program. And we're looking forward to doing this. We're looking forward to premiering it with you and seeing how this important issue can continue to come to the forefront and make some very significant changes.
Well, thank you so much. It has been such a pleasure, and I'm so delighted that I was able to tell you about this and that it really resonated with you.
And it certainly does. And Bonnie, we're here to work on that, and perhaps on our next program we can show a little clip or two of what a Funnel of Dreams is bringing to our community.
Thank you.
And thank you, Bonnie, and thank you for joining us. And thank you for joining us on this special edition of Up Close on METV.